Well, there are 3 children in need for every 1 open daycare spot in the state of Missouri. That's according to United Women's Empowerment. The shortage is why Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe emphasized the need for solutions during his first State of the State address. WGM's Missouri Capitol Bureau reporter Hannah Falcon was in Jefferson City today, where lawmakers are already responding to that call.
We have a wait list right now of over 175. Most of those are babies and 2-year-olds.
Jordan Valley Health in the Springfield, Missouri area offers early childhood education and daycare programs. Melissa Weiner tells me the demand is great and she wants to expand the program, but one thing is standing in the way.
Those delays are causing us to put that on hold right now.
Weiner testified in support of a bill that would allow temporary licenses for child care centers in good standing, hoping to expand. Under this bill, an existing child care facility could open a new location with a temporary license after passing a preliminary safety examination, while waiting for the state to process administrative paperwork that can take up many months or even a year.
House Bill 850 has the possibility to answer the community's call for solid early childhood education, daycare, and after-school care sooner.
When parents have a safe and reliable place to take their children and know that they can be taken care of, they are able to focus on their work and make our communities even stronger.
Governor Mike Kehoe recognized the state's child care shortage in his State of the State address Tuesday. 85% of Missourians live in a child care desert, according to United We.
While there are certainly a number of requirements needed to keep kids safe while in child care, we can do a better job of making regulations easier to understand, implement, and comply with.
There was no opposition to the bill in Wednesday's hearing, but there were questions on how the state can ensure safety while cutting red tape.
These requirements that we're requiring that they obtain before they get the temporary license are the exact safety requirements that a brand new facility would be required to obtain.
A similar bill was passed by the Missouri House last year but did not make it through the Senate. Representatives are hopeful this early start and support from the governor will bode well for the bill this year. Reporting in Jefferson City, I'm Hannah Falcon.